I never snooped through my wife's things. I never felt the need to, but that night, something changed. Emma was in the shower, and I was in the kitchen looking for my keys when I accidentally knocked over her purse. Loose change, lipstick, receipts, typical stuff. But then, something unusual caught my eye, a tiny plastic case. Inside it was a SIM card. My pulse quickened. Why would Emma need a second SIM card? She barely used her phone for calls. A second number meant one thing, secrecy. And secrecy in a marriage? It was never a good sign. I stood there, frozen, my brain working at 100 miles an hour. This could mean nothing. Maybe it was an old SIM she never threw away. Maybe it was for work. Maybe I was about to open a door I wouldn't be able to close. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I took the SIM and went straight to my office. I had an old burner phone in my desk drawer, one I kept as a backup when traveling. Hands shaking, I popped in the card and powered it on. It took a few seconds to register, and then, bam, a whole list of contacts I had never seen before. My stomach twisted. No names, just numbers. Some had emojis next to them, a heart, a fire, even a devil emoji. Who the hell were these people? I scrolled through the messages, and that's when my hands started shaking for real. The texts were explicit, flirty. Some were straight up romantic. Whoever she was talking to, she wasn't just making casual conversation. There were mentions of secret meetups, inside jokes I didn't understand, even little details that made my blood run cold. Can't wait to see you again. Last time was amazing. Still thinking about your lips on me. Wish I could spend the whole night, but you know how it is. What the hell? My heart pounded so hard it hurt. My wife, my Emma, was living a double life, and I had just stumbled right into it. I kept scrolling, but then my hands nearly dropped the phone because I saw something that made my vision blur. A message sent just this morning. Tonight. Usual place. No distractions this time. Can't wait to feel you again. My breath caught in my throat. That meant she was planning to see him tonight. I had two choices. Pretend I never saw this and let the betrayal continue under my nose, or go find out exactly who my wife had been sneaking around with. I already knew what I had to do. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had no idea who this man was, but I knew exactly where my wife would be tonight. The usual place. That meant this wasn't some one-time mistake. This wasn't an impulsive fling. She had a routine, a system for sneaking around. My stomach twisted with disgust, but I swallowed it down. If she thought she was smart, she was about to find out just how stupid she had been. I put the burner phone in my pocket, grabbed my car keys, and walked out like nothing was wrong. Emma was still in the shower. Perfect. I drove aimlessly for a while, my thoughts racing. I couldn't go to my friends. I was too humiliated. I couldn't go to her family. Her mom would probably defend her no matter what. I was alone in this, just me, my anger, and the truth I wasn't supposed to know. I didn't have to wait long. Around 8 p.m., Emma walked out of the bedroom, dressed like she was going on a first date. Not too flashy, but carefully put together, hairstyled, makeup perfect, a subtle perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. She glanced at me casually. I'm heading out for a bit. Carly needs help with something. Carly, her best friend, the one she always used as a cover when she needed an excuse. I forced myself to sound normal. Oh yeah? What's going on? She hesitated. Just some guy trouble. She wants my advice. The lie was so smooth, so effortless, that for a split second, I almost doubted everything. Almost. All right, I said, nodding. Tell her I said hi. She smiled. Will do. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out. I waited exactly 1 minute before following her. She had no idea I was right behind her the whole way. I kept my distance, careful not to let my headlights get too close. She drove across town, past the usual places we went together, past the restaurants we used to love, past the coffee shop where we had our first date. Every street felt like a slap in the face. Then, she pulled into a hotel parking lot. Not a restaurant, not a bar, a goddamn hotel. My grip on the steering wheel was so tight, my knuckles ached. I watched as she parked, checked her phone, then stepped out of the car like it was just another normal night. And that's when I saw him. A tall guy in a dark jacket, waiting near the entrance. The moment Emma saw him, she lit up. She walked straight into his arms, let him pull her close, and whispered something into his ear that made him smile. Then, without hesitation, they walked inside together. I sat there, gripping the phone in my pocket, my whole body shaking with rage. I wasn't just going to let this slide. No. I was going inside. I killed the engine and sat there, my breath coming fast and sharp. Every part of me was screaming to storm in, grab that bastard by the collar, and tear my wife's lies apart right in front of him. But I knew better. Emotions make you stupid. I needed to be smart. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them entering the hotel. I didn't even know why, maybe proof for later, maybe just something to hold on to when she inevitably tried to gaslight me. Then, with my heart hammering like a war drum, I got out of the car and followed them inside. The hotel lobby was dimly lit, quiet, the kind of place people used when they didn't want to be seen. My stomach churned. This wasn't even the first time she had been here, was it? She knew exactly where to go, like it was routine, like she had done this before. I stayed back, keeping to the shadows. The man at the front desk barely looked up as Emma and her mystery man walked past. They didn't go to the counter, no check-in, no fumbling with a credit card. They already had a room. I clenched my jaw. She had planned this. She had thought it through. They stepped into the elevator, the doors sliding shut behind them. I didn't have time to think. I needed to know where they were going. I rushed to the counter. The guy behind the desk looked up. "Can I help you?" I forced a casual smile. "Yeah, actually. I think my wife just left something in her room earlier today. She called me to grab it for her, but I forgot to ask which room she was in." The man raised an eyebrow. "What's the name?" I hesitated. If she was using a fake name, I was screwed. But I gambled anyway. "Emma Carter." He clicked around on his computer, then, jackpot. "Room 214. I nodded, like this was totally normal information to learn. "Thanks, man." Then I turned and walked toward the elevators, my fists clenched at my sides. I had no idea what I was about to walk into, but I knew one thing. Emma was about to learn what it felt like to get caught. I stood outside room 214, my pulse hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it. No more guessing, no more doubts. Whatever was happening behind this door was real, and in the next few minutes, I was going to blow her entire lie to pieces. I took a slow breath. No emotions, no rage, just the truth. I knocked. Silence. I knocked again, harder this time. A muffled voice, then footsteps. Then the door cracked open, just a sliver. Emma's voice came through, light and casual, but with a slight edge. "Hello?" She didn't open the door all the way. Of course she didn't. She thought it. I didn't say a word. I just shoved the door open and stepped inside, and there she was. Emma stood frozen in the middle of the dimly lit room, her face draining so fast she looked like a ghost. Behind her, the guy, the same tall bastard from earlier, was standing near the bed, his shirt slightly undone, his hands half raised like he was about to start damage control. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For a solid 5 seconds, it was just the three of us standing in the middle of a car crash in real time. Then Emma found her voice. "What the hell are you doing here?" I almost laughed. That was her first reaction. Anger, not guilt, not shock, just pure defensive anger. I kept my voice steady. "I could ask you the same thing." She crossed her arms, her nostrils flaring. "Are you following me now? Are you seriously so insecure that you have to track my every move? Unbelievable." She was already trying to flip this on me. I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing her the text from the burner SIM card I found in her bag. You recognize these? I scrolled through the messages. Emma's eyes flickered to the screen for half a second before she schooled her expression back into that infuriating calm mask. I don't know what that is. I scoffed. Really? You don't know your own texts? Tonight. Usual place. No distractions this time. That's not you, I said. Her lips parted slightly, just for a fraction of a second, and that was all I needed. She wasn't shocked I had the messages. She was scrambling to figure out how I got them. Give me that, she snapped, lunging for the phone. I pulled it back. No. Her expression darkened. You went through my stuff. I almost laughed in her face. You're standing in a hotel room with another man and you're mad at me? The guy finally spoke. Look, man. I cut him off so fast, his mouth actually snapped shut. Shut up. I'm not talking to you. Emma huffed, like this whole situation was just so inconvenient for her. This is insane. You're acting crazy. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. I'm acting crazy? Emma, I followed you here. I watched you hug this guy in the parking lot. I watched you walking together. You're in a hotel room, and he's half undressed. What exactly am I supposed to think? Silence. Her eyes darted back to the guy for half a second, a stupid, panicked little glance, like she was waiting for him to step in and save her. But he didn't, because deep down, they both knew there was no getting out of this. And then, in one breath, she switched tactics. She rolled her eyes, actual eyes. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. Nothing even happened yet. I stared at her. Yet? I folded my arms. Yeah, yet. I came here to talk, that's it. You're making this into something it's not. I let out a slow, deep breath through my nose. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was exhausted. I turned my gaze to the guy. What's your name? He hesitated. Jason. I nodded. Jason, tell me something. If I wasn't here right now, would you two still just be talking? Jason opened his mouth, closed it, then shifted his weight. Emma glared at him. Jason, don't answer that. That was all I needed. I took one last look at her, the woman I had trusted, the woman who had lied to my face so effortlessly. I pocketed my phone. You know what? Keep the room. Looks like you'll be needing it. Then I turned and walked out the door, leaving her in the mess she created. I walked out of that hotel room without looking back. If I had stayed a second longer, I don't know what I would have done, yelled, thrown something, laughed in her face, maybe all of the above. But I wasn't going to waste another second standing there while Emma fed me lies with a straight face. I took the elevator down, each floor making it clearer this marriage was over. I stepped outside into the cold night air, my breath sharp in my chest. The reality of what just happened hit me like a truck. Emma was upstairs, probably pacing in that hotel room, scrambling for a way to turn this around. I could already imagine the excuses she tried to throw at me. It didn't mean anything. It was just a mistake. I was lonely. I clenched my jaw. Screw that. I wasn't some idiot she could manipulate. I had seen the texts. I had followed her here. I had caught her in the act, and still, she stood there lying like it was second nature. No guilt, no regret, just damage control. I reached my car, yanked the door open, and sat inside, gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. My whole body was buzzing, anger, adrenaline, disgust. I had never felt anything like this before. And then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Emma. I let it ring. It rang again and again. Then a text popped up. Can we please talk? I actually laughed. The audacity of this woman. Talk? What the hell was left to say? But then something else hit me. Emma wasn't just reaching out because she suddenly had a guilty conscience. She was scared. Not of losing me, no, that wasn't it. She was scared of what I was going to do next. And she should be. Because I wasn't just going to leave quietly. No, I was going to tear her lies apart. I started my car and drove home, my mind racing. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I was going to be smart. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had already made up my mind. I was going to let her talk. I was going to let her dig her own grave with every lie she told, and when she was done, I was going to destroy her with the truth. I left the front door unlocked. Let her walk into my house like everything was normal. Let her think she still had some control over this situation. Let her believe, even for a second, that she could talk her way out of what she had done. I sat on the couch, calm, waiting. 20 minutes later, the door creaked open. Footsteps, hesitant, slow. She didn't know what she was walking into. Good. Emma appeared in the doorway, still in that outfit she had worn to impress him. She looked nervous, not guilty, nervous, like she was about to take a test she hadn't studied for. She opened her mouth, probably to launch into whatever excuse she had come up with on the drive over. I raised a hand. Sit down. She hesitated. Just sit. She swallowed, then walked over to the chair across from me. For the first time in years, we sat facing each other like strangers. A tense silence stretched between us. Then, she exhaled dramatically, like she was the one suffering here. Look, I know how this must look. I almost smiled. Here we go, I muttered. How it must look, I repeated. Emma, I followed you. I watched you meet him. I watched you check into a hotel together. I walked into the room and caught you with him. And you're going to sit here and tell me it's just how it looked? She flinched, just for a second, then her expression hardened. Nothing happened, she said, voice firm now. I swear, we were just talking. I let out a short laugh. That's your story? After everything I just said? It's the truth, she insisted. I leaned forward. You had a whole separate SIM card, Emma. You hid an entire relationship from me. You've been sneaking around for who knows how long. Long, I said. And you think I'm going to believe that nothing happened? She crossed her arms. Believe what you want, she said. Unreal. I shook my head. You know, I was actually hoping you'd admit it. Own up to it. Tell me why. Maybe I could have at least respected that. I met her eyes. But you won't, will you? You'll lie, you'll gaslight, you'll twist this however you can to make yourself the victim. Emma's jaw tightened. I'm not gaslighting you. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the messages from her burner SIM, then turned the screen to face her. Do you recognize these? I asked. She glanced at them, then back up at me, her face blank. Where did you get that? Her only concern was how I found them, not what they meant, not how badly she had destroyed our marriage. Just damage control. I leaned back. Doesn't matter, I said. Silence. Then she exhaled sharply, shaking her head. This is ridiculous. You don't even know the whole story. I laughed again, cold and bitter. Oh, please enlighten me. She bit her lip. I was confused. I tilted my head. Confused? Yes, she said quickly, like she had finally found an excuse she could sell. I didn't mean for it to happen. It started as just talking, venting, and then I got caught up in it. But it was a mistake. She leaned forward, eyes wide, voice softer now, calculated. You have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her, feeling nothing, no anger, no sadness, just clarity. I nodded slowly. You never wanted to hurt me. She nodded eagerly. I stood up. Then pack your stuff. Her face fell. Wait, what? You heard me. Her mouth opened and closed. So that's it, she snapped. You're just throwing everything away? I raised an eyebrow. I'm throwing everything away. She stood up, arms flailing in frustration. It was a mistake, okay? A dumb, meaningless mistake. You're really going to ruin our marriage over one little thing? I took a slow breath, so close to losing my composure, but I didn't. I just met her gaze, steady and unwavering. Our marriage was already ruined, I said. I just finally saw it for what it was. Emma scoffed. You're overreacting. I almost laughed in her face. No, Emma. I'm finally reacting the way I should have all along. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Good, I said. I turned and walked toward the hallway. I was done. But just as I reached the doorway, she spat out one final sentence that made my blood run cold. You'll regret this. I stopped, turned my head slightly. I knew that tone. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't remorse. It was a threat. I stood there for a second, letting her words settle. You'll regret this, she repeated. Not. I'm sorry. Not. I'll do anything to fix this. No. Emma's last desperate move wasn't to fight for our marriage. It was to threaten me. I turned slowly, locking eyes with her. That's supposed to scare me? She smirked. I don't know. Should it? Something in me snapped. Not in an angry, explosive way, no. It was colder than that. Like a wire had been cut inside me, permanently severing any connection I had left to this woman. You're unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. Her expression darkened. You think you can just kick me out like I'm some stranger? She took a step forward. You think you can just walk away from this without consequences? I folded my arms. Emma, you've already lost. You can drop the act. She scoffed. You have no idea what you're doing. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't scared because she got caught. She was scared because she had something to lose. I narrowed my eyes. What are you so afraid of? She hesitated, just for a second, but that second was enough. I let the silence stretch, watching her, letting the weight of her own paranoia settle on her shoulders. Then I spoke, slow and deliberate. You weren't just cheating on me, were you? A flicker of something, panic, crossed her face, gone in an instant. I took a step forward. This wasn't some random fling. You weren't just confused, I said, my voice dropping lower. You were hiding something. And now you're terrified because you know I'm going to find out. She swallowed hard. You're insane. I smiled. Maybe. Her hands clenched into fists. You don't have proof of anything. Wrong thing to say. I pulled out my phone and slowly scrolled through the messages on her burner SIM. Let her watch. Let her wonder how much I knew. Then I said, Not yet. There it was, the crack in her mask. I pocketed my phone and turned toward the bedroom. Start packing. I didn't wait for a response. Didn't need one. She had already told me everything I needed to know without saying a single word. I walked into the bedroom and shut the door behind me, not to trap myself inside, but to trap her out. I needed space, a moment to think. Because I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. No, this was bigger. She was hiding something, something worse than I had expected. Emma wasn't begging for forgiveness. She wasn't trying to guilt-trip me into staying. She was threatening me, panicking over what I might uncover. That meant whatever she had done wasn't just about me. It wasn't just some emotional affair she tried to excuse with. I was lonely. Or, it didn't mean anything. It was something else. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. Then my phone buzzed. Not Emma. A new number. I swiped to read the message. We should talk now, before she makes a mess of this. I stared at the screen. The text had come from the burner SIM card, the one I pulled from Emma's bag. A message from one of her contacts. I scrolled up, checking the previous texts. No name, just a number. But this wasn't him, not Jason, the guy I caught her with. The way this person was texting her, it wasn't romantic. It was businesslike. And now, suddenly, this person wanted to talk. I took a slow breath. I didn't know what I was walking into, but at this point, what did I have to lose? I texted back. Who are you? 3 dots appeared immediately. Whoever they were waiting. Then the reply came. Someone who can tell you what your wife has really been up to. I stood up so fast, the bed creaked. I had two choices: keep playing Emma's game, let her spin her lies, and pretend this was just about a mistake in a hotel room, or go straight to the source. I glanced at the door, heard her moving around in the living room, probably pacing, trying to figure out her next move. She wanted me to regret this. She had no idea what was coming. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. Emma looked up from the couch, startled. "Where are you going?" I smiled. "You'll find out soon enough." Then I left and went to meet the person who knew the truth. I pulled into the parking lot of an old, rundown diner on the edge of town, the kind of place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. A dim neon sign flickered, barely any cars outside. Perfect spot for a secret conversation. Whoever this person was, they didn't want to be seen. I parked near the entrance and scanned the lot. My phone buzzed again. Inside. Booth in the back. I took a slow breath. I wasn't sure what I was about to walk into, but I wasn't turning back now. I stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim lighting. A few truckers at the counter, an old man reading a newspaper, and in the farthest booth, a man sitting alone, watching me. I walked over and sat down across from him. He looked mid-40s, sharp features, expensive watch, not the kind of guy who he belonged in a place like this. He stirred his coffee, eyes locked on me. "You're the husband," he said. I leaned back. "And you're the guy texting my wife?" He gave a short laugh. "Not exactly." I clenched my jaw. "Then who are you?" He tilted his head slightly, like he was debating whether to tell me. Then he sighed. "Let's just say I was in business with your wife." I frowned. "Business?" He nodded. "And she's been making some dangerous choices." My stomach tightened. "What kind of choices?" The man tapped the side of his coffee cup. "Your wife has been taking money from people she shouldn't, making promises she can't keep, and now she's in over her head." I blinked. I had walked in expecting to hear more about her affair, not this. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked. "Emma's not." I stopped because suddenly things started clicking. The second card, the weird transactions in our bank statements she always brushed off, the way she was so desperate to keep control when I confronted her. I had been so focused on her cheating, I missed the bigger picture. The man leaned forward. "She owes people money, people who don't like to wait. And from what I've seen, she's running out of ways to stall them." I stared at him. "What does this have to do with me?" He smirked. "You're her husband. That means you're part of this, whether you like it or not." A cold chill ran down my spine. I wasn't just dealing with a lying, cheating wife. I was dealing with a woman who had gotten herself into serious trouble, and now that trouble was knocking at my door. I sat there, gripping the edge of the table so hard my fingers ached. The low hum of the diner's radio buzzed in the background, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The man across from me, whoever the hell he was, watched me with calm amusement, like he had seen this scenario play out a dozen times before. "Let me get this straight," I said, keeping my voice level. "Emma owes money to people who don't like waiting, and now that I've caught her, I'm supposed to clean up her mess?" He tilted his head slightly, tapping one finger against his coffee cup. "That depends on what?" He smirked. "On how much you want to suffer." I exhaled slowly. So this was the game. Emma had been screwing around behind my back, but that wasn't the worst part. She had been lying about something much bigger, something that could drag me down with her. I leaned forward. "How much does she owe?" He shrugged. "Enough." "That's not an answer. That's the only answer you're getting." He placed his hands flat on the table. "Look, I don't care about your marriage. I don't care who she's sleeping with. But I do care about loose ends." His eyes flickered with something darker. "And right now you're a loose end." A cold weight settled in my stomach. This wasn't just about Emma anymore. I pushed back against the rising panic. "Let me guess. You want me to pay off her debt?" His smirk widened. "Now you're getting it." I let out a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, that's not happening. He raised an eyebrow. No? I shook my head. Emma got herself into this. She can get herself out. He studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed and slid out of the booth. All right, have it your way. He tossed a few bills onto the table like this was just another business transaction. But a word of advice. I didn't respond. He leaned in slightly. I'd watch my back if I were you. Emma doesn't like losing. Then he walked out, leaving me sitting in that damn booth, my brain spinning. I stayed there for a while, staring at the untouched menu. My mind racing through everything I had just learned. Emma wasn't just a cheater. She was a liar, a fraud, and a coward. And she was about to realize something very, very important. I wasn't going to be her safety net. I pulled out my phone. Another text from her, more desperate attempts at control. I ignored it. Then I sent my own message. Pack your things. You're out. No explanations, no second chances, no more games. This time, she was the one losing everything.